My name is Ray Andrade. I am LMU's Student Engagement Librarian. On behalf of the entire team at the William H. Hannon Library, welcome. Welcome to the March edition of our monthly Faculty Pub Night series. Tonight, we feature Dr. Aidin Namin, Associate Professor of Marketing Analytics from LMU's College of Business Administration. He'll discuss his recently co-authored article, The Unanticipated Dynamics of Promoting Crowdfunding Donation Campaigns on Social Media. Which reminds me, happy annual day of giving. And please don't forget to donate very generously towards the William H. Hannon Library today. So, after a brief presentation by Dr. Namin, I'm going to join him for a friendly sofa chat to talk about his article. And this will be followed by a Q&A segment with the audience to conclude tonight's program. This event has been organized in part through Loyola Marymount University and the William H. Hannon Library, and so we use this location to base our land acknowledgement. The land that the William H. Hannon Library sits on is unceded land of the Tongva peoples, who in the face of ongoing settler colonialism, continue to claim their place and act as stewards of their ancestral lands as they have for the past 8,000 years. These lands and waters reach from the Pacific Ocean into what is now San Bernardino County. The whole of the Los Angeles Basin is unceded territory. I ask you to take a moment and think about what it would mean to take responsibility for one's presence on stolen land. I also encourage you to learn more about the history of this land by going to native-land.ca. Just a few more things before we begin tonight's program. It's called a Faculty Pub Night. What is a Faculty Pub Night? Well, it's a monthly event where the library shines a spotlight on the outstanding scholarship and creative works of our faculty, and shares this work with our students, staff, faculty, and the local area community. The format of this event is casual, so please feel free to get some more food or drinks at any time. For those of you 21 or over, beer and wine is on the house, but please drink responsibly. It's called Faculty Pub Night, but don't let the name mislead you. It's not just for faculty, and it's not 21 and over. This event is open to everybody, so please bring your friend for the next one. The library has more than 40 programs every year, yes, including farm animals and goats during finals. If you want to be aware of all of these events, please follow us on Instagram. Our handle is @LMU Library. This event is being video recorded. If you'd like to view the recording of this event and any other events, please visit our library's YouTube channel and subscribe. And lastly, on your seats, you should see these small feedback surveys. Please fill those out to give us feedback so we could improve our events. And if you share your email address, you would be entered into a raffle for a $100 Amazon gift card as well. All right, let's begin tonight's event with a formal introduction. Dr. Aidin Namin is Associate Professor of Marketing Analytics at LMU's College of Business Administration. Applying quantitative and econometrics techniques, Dr. Namin's research interests are marketing and data analytics in the areas of retailing and digital marketing. Namin has received various grants, research and teaching awards, including the Fulbright U.S. Scholar Award, the LMU Excellence in Research Award, a Thought Leader in Retailing Research Award, the Paul R. Lawrence Award from the Case Research Foundation, 4 Best Paper Awards in Marketing Analytics and Big Data, and guess what? The study that he'll present tonight has been published in the #1 digital marketing journal. This would be the Journal of Interactive Marketing. It just received a Best Paper Award. And the study that he'll discuss tonight has also received significant media coverage lately. Dr. Namin has also received 4 major teaching awards, 3 national teaching awards, including the MMA Master Teacher Award, the AMA and ACME Teaching Innovation Awards, and the Teacher of the Year Award from the University of Texas at Dallas. Of particular note, the AMA Teaching Award is considered the most prestigious teaching award in the field of marketing. He also co-founded the Marketing Analytics Pathway Program for undergraduate students here at LMU back in 2017, and the Master of Science in Business Analytics program back in 2018. Lastly, on a more personal note, Dr. Namin cares deeply about his family and students, and he enjoys outdoor activities and try new food recipes online. Can you please help me welcome Dr. Aidin Namin.
Thank you very much. Was that all me, mate? Appreciate it. Thank you all for coming to this event. I know everyone is busy, especially during these rainy days. It's an honor and privilege to be here. This is the second faculty pub night that I'm doing, but this is the first one that I'm actually doing it physically. The first one was over Zoom during COVID, so it feels much better. Thanks so much all for coming. We are going to be talking about social media and fundraising as we are dealing with, okay. Super fancy, okay. Perfect, thank you. All right, so we are going to be talking about the role of social media when it comes to doing online fundraising campaigns, which we all know they are called crowdfunding. Okay, we are going to see how social media can be used, if social media can be used in order to improve fundraising activities. Let me start by asking you guys a couple of questions. Where do you guys think most of the donations and charity money coming from? Is it from people, corporates, bequests, or other sources? What are your thoughts? People. Citizens. Others. No one said corporates. We don't believe in corporates?
Sometimes matches.
Well, you guys are actually right to a good extent. Okay, perfect. I can use the keyboard, no worries. All right, so here's some data just to show you that nearly 3/4 of the total donation money in the US is actually coming from people. Okay, and as you can see, corporate share is pretty tiny, it's only 5%. Okay, but we don't really hear much about where this money is coming from, and we don't, to some extent, we don't really seem to appreciate all these individuals who are donating money, but when the corporate company donates money, we hear a lot about that, right? So what happens is that the amount of money being donated has been on the rise for the past few years. We do know that, with some exceptions of what happened during COVID, but generally it has been on the rise. What's interesting to see that individuals donating money have been spending more money on donations, but the rate of increase in individuals' donation money has been higher than the amount of money being donated in total through all the sources that you can see in this pie chart. This somehow brought the idea for this research study, thinking about, all right, if most of the donation is coming from individuals, then how can we motivate people to donate more? Or how in general can a crowdfunding campaign be managed? With that said, I'm going to pull up this slide and ask you guys, to raise your hand if you know at least one of these 3 main crowdfunding campaigns. Keep your hand up if you know 2 out of 3. Keep your hand up if you know 3 out of 3. Okay, 3 people. Okay, there are 3 people who know 3 out of 3. So these are the largest crowdfunding campaigns that are out there. Many people, I noticed that, raised their hand for the first one. I would think that was probably Kickstarter, because that seems to be more famous, and then we have GoFundMe.com as well. So there are a couple of tiny differences between these websites that are running crowdfunding campaigns in the US. And some of them are actually working in international markets as well. One of these websites, such as GoFundMe.com, they are specifically focused on charity-based crowdfunding. Okay, meaning you give some money to a certain campaign, but you do not expect anything specific in return. All right, versus Kickstarter, most of what they promote on their website is not charity-based, which the term for that is reward-based crowdfunding. All right, where you give money for a campaign and you would receive something in return. So that one thing could be some share of the company or some monetary reward is going to be involved with that. What this talk is about tonight is specifically about charity-based crowdfunding. Okay, and to the best of our knowledge, when we were working on this study, this was the first study looking into charity-based crowdfunding and how that links into social media. So that basically sets the boundary for what we will be talking about tonight. Now, think about crowdfunding for 1 second and put that aside. Now let's think about social media. The numbers for social media are staggering. So nearly 50% of the world population have at least one social media account. Raise your hand if you check at least one social media account every day. From what I see, it's pretty much every single person in the room. Okay, and it's not surprising. We spend a lot of time on social media. In fact, data shows that an average American spends 100 minutes a day in total on social media accounts. Raise your hand if you feel that you spend this much time, 100 minutes a day on social media. So that's a good number, right? I'm seeing 6 or 7 people raise their hand, right? Also, it's important to see that while the social media is around, people may feel that it's easier to spread the word, to talk about different topics. So it may seem on the surface that social media could be a great platform in order to talk about these crowdfunding campaigns, these donation campaigns, which all of them have been formed with good intentions, right? So you might think that, all right, social media is virtually free of charge to use. So why don't I just talk about my charity campaign and try to spread the word through social media and then expect to get more money in return? What do you guys think about this idea? If I spread my social media, if I spread my crowdfunding campaign on social media, what is your personal thought before we get into the details of this study? Do you expect to get more donation and more money? Yes, no, why not? Right.
Broader reach, first of all. And I think, particularly if you're spreading it through your networks, people have a connection to you. They might not otherwise realize that you are supporting a particular charity, and they might rethink it.
Very good, excellent. Other thoughts? So does it seem on the surface that if I use social media, then I would be more likely to get more money? So I see some people nodding. So this is the feeling that I think everyone would get. And even when we started doing this research, we were under the same impression that the result of this study is going to be kind of intuitive, all right? So when you let more people know, then it's more likely to get more money back, okay? So that was where we started the idea of doing this study. What I will be talking about tonight is part of our co-authored paper, so it would fit within the 30-35 minutes time that we are given for this presentation. So the paper has more details and is available for those who are interested. Feel free to download it, read it. The link is available on the library website. Our conversation tonight is mostly about the context, and I will be presenting part of what we have done in the paper. Now, then it becomes the topic of slacktivism, which we hear that a lot in relation to social media, but it's not specific to social media. What is a slacktivism? Let's see if the students want to share. Please go ahead.
Okay, so it's like you associate yourself with the cause without actually doing anything for it. So you could repost that a fundraiser is happening without donating to it.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. So that's absolutely right. So slacktivism is the act of trying to support a cause with all good intentions without really doing anything serious or significant to support the cause. Okay, here are some examples. When there is a political campaign going on, all right, you want to support a certain candidate or you want to support a certain party, but you do not want to really donate money to that party, okay? You just use a bumper sticker, and then you walk around, you feel like you have done your share, and these are all the good intentions, but you're not actually doing anything meaningful in terms of donating money. Another example here, where a few years ago, many people, and I believe it started with Mark Zuckerberg, many people started changing their Facebook profile picture into the French flag. Okay, they were supporting and sympathizing with French people, but at the same time, they were not really doing anything serious. Okay, so the topic of slacktivism has been around, and you can look at it through different contexts. It's not a bad thing. The people who do these things aren't really trying to help, but at the same time, they do not really try to help in a significant or meaningful way. So it does not mean that if somebody is trying to add a bumper sticker, it's not going to contribute at all. Okay, so there might be some level of contribution, but it's not directly or equivalent to donating money, for instance, to the campaign of the candidate you're supporting. Now, the situation here is that we want to see if this slacktivism is going to be something for social media that is going to contribute or hurt crowdfunding campaigns. And that was the topic when we started thinking about this research project. In other words, the main two research questions that we will be discussing are, all right, is there slacktivism present when you're trying to do online social media campaigns? And is the magnitude of the slacktivism something that could potentially change the direction of a crowdfunding campaign? So these were the two topics that we were trying to address. Question for the audience. How can social media, you think, be helpful for a business or for any marketing activity? What are your thoughts? Please.
Spreads awareness.
Very good, spreads awareness. What else? There should be some good stuff there, otherwise many companies wouldn't have been using it, we would think, right? So other than spreading awareness, what else positive, please?
I think for companies, it's like if your logo is like constantly popping up, it's like that's going to be the like minute difference that chooses one company over another. You know,
Very good, very good. Increasing reach, increasing exposure. Excellent, what else?
Maybe providing types of events, awareness about events that the company's having.
Absolutely, you can communicate about the events, certain things that the company is involved with, right? So there are so many ways that a brand can support, hey guys, so many ways that a brand can use social media to support what they're doing. So it could be through creating awareness, better communication, even forming some online communities for what they're doing. All these things seem to be in support of using social media for business activities. And there are numerous papers that have studied these things. However, when it comes to something such as a charity campaign, that money is involved, but is not really for profit. Okay, how would the dynamics turn out when you're using social media with all good intentions for something that is business in one sense because you're trying to collect money, but it's not really business because you're not trying to make profits? The concept of slacktivism has been studied in various articles, papers out there, and probably the most famous paper related to this is, I just put the name of the paper here for you guys, and some of these people, you might have seen them. If you watch a lot of TV, some of these people do get invited for different discussions and talks. So I'm just putting a formal definition of slacktivism here, that you want to do something, but it's a token. So you want to support without really offering significant support or giving up some of the things that you may have. How would that work in the context of crowdfunding, charity-based crowdfunding? How did we approach this problem? So amongst the three websites that we discussed earlier, we picked GoFundMe.com because GoFundMe has more coverage for charity-based campaigns. So what we did was we developed a Python robot to go to the website and scrape data. We scraped data for more than 1,200 unique crowdfunding campaigns that were available on the website. And we did that over a period of time, and that gave us a data set of more than 15,000 observations. So we have the data, and we also looked into the type of campaigns based on the categorization that the website had done. So they had certain categories such as medical, education, and I will show you the full list of sports related. So they categorized it, we didn't do that. We also scraped the data for those categories. This table summarizes just some statistics of the data that we scraped. As you can see, types of campaigns per their categorization is medical, emergency, education, memorial, sports, and animals. Okay, and as you can see, there is a wide range of money that they are asking to be collected. So as you can see, for instance, there's a campaign with from $5 to $1 million. Okay, so there's a wide range of amount of money that they're trying to collect when they run these campaigns at the time that we collected this data. I also put some other statistics for you guys to show, for you guys to see that, how the numbers look like. What we did was also, we scraped data for the number of likes and shares that each of these campaigns have received. So one quick thing to clarify here is that liking on this website, which they don't do that right now, and that's the topic of another one of our ongoing projects. I will be discussing that with Ray later. Liking at the time that we collected data did not identify who is liking the campaign. Okay, so it's not like social media liking that you would actually see who the quote-unquote liker is. Okay, so that was a different liking mechanism that they have. Sharing, on the other hand, when you shared it, it would go through the social media of your choice to be shared. So we also collected data on the number of likes, shares, as well as how much money each campaign was collecting on each day. Then before doing any sort of formal analysis, we looked into model-free situation to see what's going on in the data. I want everyone to look at this picture and tell me what you get from this picture, other than it being kind of like postmodern art. Any thoughts?
There's a consistency from like 5 and above where it's linear versus nonlinear.
Very good. Awesome. Others? So this picture shows contours. So this was a 3-dimensional graph that I'm showing it as 2-dimension. All right. So we have log of shares, log of likes, and the log of amount of money collected is the z-axis coming out of the board. All right. So there is another axis pointing to the direction that you guys are seated, and that was a 3-dimension. Now, it was not easy to show something like this on a 2-dimensional board. That is why we are using contours. So we are cutting it on spaces or pages parallel to what you see on this screen. And then I put the 3rd dimension on the side so you can see. So what are these contours telling us? I'm not using any specific model here, but these contours are telling us that likes and shares have some connection with the amount of money being raised. But what is this connection? Other than this somehow cool looking graph, we cannot really say much because we are converting a 3-dimension graph into a 2-dimension. But this does give us a good starting point in terms of getting into analyzing the data and seeing what's going on in there. We looked into a number of hypotheses. I'm not presenting full hypotheses. Like I said, this is a portion of the paper that we are presenting tonight. But the 2 of the hypotheses that I think are more interesting for the audience, given that, as you can see, we have a lot of students in the audience, is, first of all, we were curious to see if liking and sharing is actually going to create some sort of a diminishing return on the amount of money that is being raised through a charity crowdfunding campaign. Okay, meaning a campaign might be receiving a lot of likes and shares, but those likes and shares are not necessarily contributing to the amount of money that the campaign is raising. And then the next one we were interested in, and I'm going to ask the audience to share your thoughts, because when we formed this hypothesis, we were trying to look into something that we felt might exist in the data, and we were lucky enough that the data supported that. But we were thinking that, all right, when you like, you just click a button, you're done. When you share, you have the option to choose who can see what you're sharing, right? The default is your entire group of friends, you can share it publicly, but you also have the option to not let certain people see what you're sharing. All right, so what are your thoughts about this? Which one seems to be easier, liking or sharing, and what do you think? This is more of a social media question. Liking is easy. So we thought the same thing. We thought, all right, liking is easier. Therefore, we thought, all right, liking might be causing a more serious slacktivism problem because it requires less effort. But again, we didn't know. We had to see what the data was telling us. So then we moved forward with our data analysis. Although I'm not going to get into the details of technicality and the econometrics that was used, I'm just presenting this because I see many students from our MSBA program and our MA pathway program are in this room. So this hopefully is going to give them more motivation to do more statistical analysis. But long story short, we were interested in modeling to see the amount of money that each campaign is raising on each period of time. And we're looking at the factors that impact this fundraising. So some of the factors was how much money have been raised already by the campaign, the number of likes, number of shares, number of donors, how long the campaign has been around, and we also looked into interaction terms of donors and likes and donors and shares. Can anyone tell me why the interaction between donors and likes and donors and shares could matter?
I feel like it's like the ratio of how many people are interacting with the posts versus actually donating.
Excellent, that's absolutely right. We wanted to make sure that the model control for those people who donate and like or donate and share versus those who just like or share and do not donate. Okay? So that was the reason that we looked into the interaction terms as well. As far as the econometrics model, again, I'm going to be super quick. We used the technique developed by Alarana and Bond. For those in our MSBA program, that's something that we covered in that program. So I'm also promoting our MSBA program. Am I okay? Is it okay to do that, right? All right. Okay.
Competing with us.
I'm sorry?
You're competing with us. Computer science.
All right, so here's the estimation result table, what we have. I'm going to ask our students in this room, because many of them are in the analytics domain, which variables are significant? Teaching moment. It's called faculty pub night, right? So part of it has to be teaching, right? Students from 45, 47, which variables are significant? We look at p-value, right? Oh, please go ahead.
All the ones that are less than 0.05.
Excellent, thank you very much. All those variables that have a p-value less than 0.05 are significant here. As you can see, we got a good number of significant variables here. But what are they telling us in terms of this talk? All right, so the first thing that we are learning here is that likes seem to be significantly impacting the amount of money being raised. But when it comes to looking at the interaction terms, as your friend mentioned, it's important to see who's donating and liking, who's liking but not donating. So as you can see here, the coefficients that we were able to find here, the interaction term for likes is roughly 10 times higher than the interaction term for shares. So this confirms our first hypothesis that yes, diminishing return for likes and shares do exist, because as you can see, both of these have a negative sign. Okay, so we were able to empirically show that, all right, fine, there is diminishing return when you're looking at likes and shares. However, we are still a little bit not so sure, because when you look at the number of likes and number of shares without the interaction term, you see that the number of shares is not significant, according to what your friend said, right? P-value is 0.29, it must be less than 0.05. So then we have to do further analysis to see what is the point at which this switch in sign is happening. Why is the switch in sign important for us? Because that is the point at which we could understand where the effect of the slacktivism would kick in. So we need to take the analysis one step further. In order to do that, we took partial derivatives. Do we have any math students here? Computer science? Electrical engineering? Okay, then my question goes back to our fabulous students from 4547. Just kidding. So we were taking partial derivatives because we wanted to see which is the point at which likes or shares could cause the effect of slacktivism. All right. So what we found was pretty interesting. We found that for when it comes to likes, after 8 people like a campaign, the slacktivism effect starts. All right. One thing is important to realize here is that this does not exactly mean that when the 9th person is going to be liking, that's going to be necessarily a slacktivist. Okay? This is where the effect gets started, and we're also able to identify that the effect of slacktivism starts for shares from the very beginning. Okay? We did further analysis, and we looked into different campaign types and measured the impact of likes and share for each of the campaign types, which I can present if there's some interest, but I try to keep it short so that we can have more discussion. Question for the audience. So, if liking and sharing is not super helpful for crowdfunding campaigns, what should the campaign manager do? Imagine you're running a campaign and you want to somehow deal with the situation that we just discussed.
Targeting the communities?
Very good, okay?
Use traditional media sources instead of social media.
Very good, excellent, please.
I would say physical outreach is more tangible.
Physical outreach, so we got physical outreach, we got traditional media, excellent. Any other thoughts?
Approach corporate donors.
That too, right? If you're lucky enough, you can get them, right? Very good. So, let's see. So what we were able to show is that, first of all, yes, there is diminishing return when it comes to likes and shares because of this slacktivism issue that we just discussed. And we were able to show that this slacktivism is more serious for likes compared with shares. And we were also able to show that shares from the very beginning could potentially carry some slacktivism weight. All right, but how to deal with that? So one of them, as it was mentioned, using conventional media, traditional media in conjunction with social media. So that is another research study that we have conducted, which we'd be happy to talk about that after we finish this presentation. So the dynamics of using both types of media together is pretty interesting also. So that's something that we can talk about. But there is no evidence that when you use social media it's going to work better compared with the situation when you use traditional media. But also we all know that the cost of traditional media, at least on paper, is going to be higher than social media. There is some expectation that social media is going to be virtually free, versus traditional media you have to pay for advertising. So that's something to keep in mind for coming up with other strategies. And finally, like any study, and that's something I think important for our students because we do a lot of research studies during our undergrad and grad school, and we have fabulous students. No research study is free of limitations, okay? We always have to make some assumptions when we do research. In this case, we scrape data from a website, so we were limited to whatever information has been publicly made available to us, okay? For instance, we didn't really know how people were guided to the website. That was not known to us. Also, in any research that uses similar model, we do not claim causality, so that's important to keep in mind. So that does not mean that when you're going to be making 9 clicks for likes, something is going to happen. All right, so we are not claiming that. Also keep in mind that we do not have any information on the donors, because this was a scraped data from the website, nor we have any information of who the slacktivist might be. So the findings of this study should be considered within the limitations that we just discussed here. And how much time do I have, Ray?
You're on time.
I'm on time, all right, very cool. So with that, I'm just going to wrap up the presentation and thank everyone in so many different languages. Once again, thank you for coming. Happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Social media promotion for this. Based on the findings of your analysis, what would you say about these social media campaigns for LMU's Day of Giving?
Yeah, I think that's a good question to ask, because this presentation just happened to be on LMU Day of Giving. So one thought before I provide the general answer, that what LMU does on LMU Day of Giving, from my understanding, is it's a one-day campaign. So it starts today and then it concludes after a certain number of hours. This is one thing I think it's important to mention at the beginning, because our analysis was for campaigns that had an actual goal, and the campaign was running through time to reach that certain goal. Versus what LMU is doing, from my understanding, is that the campaign starts for one day and there is no actual goal to reach, so kind of like the more the merrier. So that's one thing, if I'm understanding correctly, from what LMU does. But a general answer, Ray, I would say is, what we identify in our study is that any crowdfunding campaign follows 3 phases, where in the first phase and third phase, social media could contribute. It's the middle phase where social media causes the most level of slacktivism. The first phase of the more liking and sharing is going to be helpful, because most of the money during that first phase is coming from friends and family. So these are the people who really want to support the cause because they know the person, or they have some tie to the campaign. The third phase is where the campaign is getting closer to its goal, and I think that's, again, was something I would like to highlight one more time, that differentiates this type of campaign versus what LMU is doing, that LMU does not have a certain goal versus those campaigns have. And when people say that the campaign is getting really close to the goal, and then people feel like, okay, let me contribute to make it happen, so the campaign will become successful. It's the middle phase that is challenging, and that's where friends and family have already contributed, they have donated, but the campaign is not close enough to its goal, where people who may not necessarily know the campaign manager to donate, that stage is where most people do liking and sharing, and that's where most of the slacktivism happens. So you see a lot of like and share, and the campaign is just going to be stuck in that period. Our analysis shows that if a campaign is not able to raise certain percentage of their ultimate goal within a certain number of days, that campaign is likely going to be unsuccessful. So that is where, so in short, if they finish stage 2, phase 2, there is chance for them to be successful. But there's also a chance that they get stuck there with liking and sharing, as slacktivism could be harmful to the campaign.
Thank you for that. And I do have to admit, a little bit earlier, like, yes, I donated towards some units on campus, and I do have to admit that I was a little bit encouraged whenever I would see that there was, whether it was anonymous or not, there was a match to make. So yeah, that kind of influenced me a bit. Like, thoughts on that as well? Like, if there's a donor who would match up to a certain amount, does that help the campaign as well?
As someone who does data analysis, I would always be hesitant to answer questions without looking into what the data are telling, all right? So if I have some data, then I would be feeling more confident to answer that question.
Thank you. All right, next question here. So, does culture play a role in digital fundraising? And if it does, how does it play a role?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. We actually just had another paper published a few months ago that Jose, sitting in the audience, he was actually instrumental in helping with some part of what we did in that paper. Culture, what we found in that paper is that, so it may feel that people from different cultural backgrounds may have different donation behaviors. And there's some studies showing that people with cultures that are significantly different show different pattern of donation behavior. What we studied in that paper, and the findings were, I think, pretty interesting, we looked into cultures that are similar on the surface, but then there might be some differences when you get deeper. What we exactly studied in that paper, we compared donation behavior for charity campaigns between Americans versus British people. So the two cultures on the surface seem to be very similar. A lot of what found the American culture is coming from the British culture. So the two cultures on the surface seem pretty similar, and there are some studies supporting that the two cultures have significant similarities. So what we did was we said, all right, so if these two cultures are so similar on the surface, would there be any differences in terms of donating behavior or how donation-based crowdfunding campaigns receive? We collected data from a major British crowdfunding campaign as well as an American campaign, and we conducted some analysis. The results were pretty interesting. What we found was that it takes fewer donors for a campaign supported by individuals in the US to take off, which they call it the critical mass. So think of it when you use Groupon website, all right? So they have certain deals that say that, all right, 80% off, only 500 people at least have purchased the deal. So the discount would not get activated until a minimum number of people have registered for that deal. That is what they call it, the critical mass. So we were able to quantify critical mass for American and British campaigns, and we identified that Americans in general seem to start supporting a campaign quicker, meaning an American campaign has a lower critical mass. But then our data showed that, our analysis showed that Americans also tend to lose interest in the campaign so quickly. So they get excited to support, then they lose their excitement. All right, I see a lot of people nodding, all right? Our data, our results show that British people having a different pattern. So they're more conservative in donating. Okay, so they have a larger critical mass, so it takes more time, but when they do make it to the critical mass, they more steadily contribute to the campaign. So overall, British campaigns were more successful than American campaigns. So culture does matter, even when two cultures on surface could be so similar.
Wow, that was very fascinating. I would never have guessed that. Wow, thank you for sharing that. When should an organization use crowdsourcing versus traditional initiatives?
Excellent question, and I think Jason also brought up using traditional media in conjunction with social media. That's another study that we conducted, and that got published last year. So what we looked into was that we looked into a number of campaigns, crowdfunding campaigns, that were promoted on the website. Then we spent a lot of time tracing those campaigns to identify which one of them have also been promoted on TV. Okay, and we specifically looked at TV so that we can do the comparison. So campaigns that were only publicized on social media versus campaigns that were publicized both on TV and social media. And then we conducted an analysis to see what is the role of using TV as a major form of traditional media in supporting these campaigns. Findings for that array we also feel were pretty interesting. What we found was that when a campaign is promoted both on social media and TV, versus only being promoted on social media attracts more donors, however, takes a longer time to achieve its goal. Meaning more people are donating, but each person is donating less. And that's why the campaign gets delayed. So then there's a trade-off that the campaign manager has to make. If they want to promote it on TV, yes, they probably get more buzzword and then create more excitement, but overall they have to wait a longer time for a campaign to reach its goal. This finding might be a little bit counterintuitive, because you think that, well, when the TV is talking about it, then I should be getting more money. But looks like you get more people, but may not necessarily get more money as quickly as you would when you only have social media.
That is fascinating. Thank you for
Thank
sharing
you.
that as well. So, since the publication of this article, have you found out why GoFundMe removed the like, share button and what impact it had?
That's an interesting question. So why they did it, we tried getting that information. Our email did not get a response. Alright? So that was, because when the paper was going through the review process, one reviewer asked that question, and we had to have an answer for it. Since we did not get a response, we just included the email that we sent that we did not get a response. But to answering to the second part of your question, that is one of our ongoing projects right now. So we have data, which is this data that we have was collected when the like button was on the website. And right now they do not have that option. So we are doing a treatment control group when the like button was there versus when it's not there. So and since it has been done in natural setting, it's a field experiment, so it's pretty good and trustworthy. So that's currently one of our working projects. Once I finish that, maybe there can be another faculty pub night to discuss the results.
I would hope so. Thank you. All right, so can you talk a little bit about working with your co-authors? So for example, the ideation process for this project, the writing, the data analysis, and what advice would you offer to students?
So I think super short answer, teamwork is the key, okay? Our students do a lot of projects for different courses. What I try to promote in the classroom, and I've seen LMU students are actually really, really good at that, is trying to work together as a team. So we want usually the outcome of the team that people work together smoothly is going to be better than when some people try not to do their share of the work. Now, the first part of your question, how we did this, so there's a note on the paper where it says that authors contributed equally. So on that is basically a summary of how we did this work. So things were done together, there was a lot of brainstorming needed. Like any research project, you might think of any research idea that might seem interesting, but then you might not necessarily find anything cool, quote unquote cool, to publish a paper with it. Okay, so there is always a situation of, and a lot of my colleagues might have experienced this, we start a research project, we invest a lot of time, and then there's no guarantee at the end we might find something cool that can be published. This work was also no exception to any other research work. We thought it was a cool research idea, we thought about it, but then there was virtually impossible to make any conclusion without seeing what the data is telling us. So once the data was collected, we had to write the codes, we collected the data, we did data analysis, and then we started writing, and it's all happened through teamwork. And the majority of this project was done during COVID, where everyone was, cooped in the house. We didn't have anything to do, so we did have very long Zoom meetings. And when I say very long, okay, because nobody else has anything else to do. And that's how the project is an equal contribution.
Thank you for that. Dr. Namin, why did you select this topic? And what is it that appealed to you? Do you plan to continue researching this topic?
Yeah, and so the second part, yes, I'm planning to continue researching. We did published two more papers after this one, and we are working on more research projects. So that's something that we are interested in continuing working on. But how we got into this story is actually kind of funny. Me and one of my co-authors, it was just one gloomy Sunday evening, we were sitting together and we were thinking of, all right, so let's check some of these websites, and we opened up GoFundMe.com just randomly. We started looking at some of the campaigns that were available there. Then, completely by accident, I'm going to be honest, completely by accident, we realized that there are some campaigns that have a lot of likes, but they were falling further behind their target compared with some campaigns that did not have as many likes, but they were making better progress. And we thought, okay, is this really something systematic? Is something causing this? Or what might be causing this? Then we came up with the very rough idea of, is social media actually helping or not helping as much as expected when it comes to crowdfunding campaigns? That was the very beginning of it. Of course, the idea later got polished and many things were added and some things were taken out, like any research project. But that was the very beginning of where this study started.
Thank you so much. And final question from me, and then we're going to turn it to the audience for Q&A. And in a moment, we're going to set up a microphone stand, so you would all be invited to submit a question at the microphone to the left. So, final question for you tonight, from me at least. Given the data, at the end of the day, is using social media to promote crowdsourcing a viable option for fundraising?
$1 million question, Ray. So, I would say it is a viable option to conduct crowdfunding under certain conditions. One of the conditions is always paying attention to which phase the campaign is going through. All right. So as I mentioned, this slacktivism becomes an issue during the middle phase of any campaign, where more likes and shares are not necessarily producing more donation. I think a campaign manager, at least based on our analysis, could pay attention to see how a campaign is making progress. For instance, we identified, our empirical study identified that if a campaign is not collecting at least 70% of their target goal within the first 20 days since launch, the campaign is likely going to be unsuccessful. So this could be, as a rule of thumb, as a guideline for a campaign manager to keep an eye on it. All right, has it been 20 days, for instance? What is the percentage? If it hasn't made it, then it would be their decision. Really, do I want to keep it, where empirical findings might suggest it's unlikely successful? Or should I just ignore that and continue? I think that's one of the things to keep in mind. And the other thing I would say is slacktivism's always out there. So I don't think any campaign manager can 100% get rid of slacktivism. Okay, so it's something that we have to deal with, but it just becomes the path of knowing how to handle it, where to stop a campaign if we want to stop it, or whether we let the campaign to go by. We hope that the result of this study is going to be helpful for campaign managers. Like any empirical analysis, nothing is set in the stone. All right, these are our findings based on the data that we use. But hopefully they're going to be providing some guidelines for campaign managers, donation-based campaign managers, to decide how they want to promote their campaign and how much they want to invest into keeping the campaign alive.
Thank you, Dr. Namin. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Now we're going to turn it over to the audience for Q&A. Thank you, Mr. Chan Harris. So if anybody has a question, we invite you to head over towards the microphone stand. And we are video recording this event, so that's why we kindly encourage you to please use the microphone. While we wait for the first question, something came up kind of recently. It pains me to bring this up, but recently there were some wildfires in the area, and I heard that there were some fake fundraising, some fake GoFundMe campaigns that were out there. What would be some of the signs for people to look out for to make sure that they're not contributing towards something that's not legit?
First of all, I think it's very unfortunate that some people were trying to take advantage of a catastrophe in a way, so a disaster. I mean, I don't know if there's a recipe for that. My gut feeling would be try to only donate to crowdfunding campaigns that are on legit websites, assuming that there is some sort of a vetting process going on for these campaigns to be posted. Since the money is going to be transferred to certain bank account, they do ask for some information in terms of who the individual is, what's their address, what's their legal name, because they want to give them the money eventually. So assuming that the vetting process by these websites is going to be a fair one, I think at least this is something that comes to my mind that could be used at least as a proxy to make sure that the campaign has gone through some vetting process, that the money is not going to land in the wrong hands.
Thank you for that.
So I'm curious how your study takes into account the different reach of individual influencers. So if I, for example, were to share a campaign that's trying to fund something, it might not get that much attention because I don't have that many followers. Where if somebody, a Hollywood celebrity, were to reshare it, they might get a ton of eyeballs on it and consequently have a much greater reach, and I would assume a much bigger likelihood of getting donations. So I'm just curious how your study sort of takes into account the fact all shares are not equal, I guess, in that sense, because they could create, much bigger reach depending on the networks of the individual sharers.
Yeah, but first of all, I would agree with you that depends on who's sharing it, it might make a difference. One challenge with using scraped data is that you have to go with what has been made public to you. And at least GoFundMe.com very heavily guards the identity of those who are liking and sharing. So we did not have access to any data in terms of who the individual liker or share or the individual who shared might be. I think one way to go around this, because these websites are very strict and they have privacy policies that I do not think they would be willing to release that information. One way to do it could be potentially to design an experiment and then to look into coming up with scenarios, or one of them, a very famous celebrity, I don't know, Leonardo DiCaprio, the name comes to my mind. Leonardo DiCaprio is sharing a campaign versus Aidin Namin is sharing a campaign. And how would that impact the process of raising more funds, and then looking into the potential impact of slacktivism and that as well. So that could be one route to go. And now I'm thinking this might be something that we potentially could work together as a future project if you want.
I love that. Let's talk later.
Thank you, Jason.
So we all know that companies like Meta and TikTok have spent hundreds of hours, if not tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars customizing their like and their share buttons, because it's all about keeping people on the platform. I imagine there's a kind of a lower incentive for companies like GoFundMe and Indiegogo to sort of really perfect the share and the like and the various infrastructure of that part of their systems. So what advice, like if you were invited by Indiegogo or GoFundMe to sort of consult on their platforms, what advice would you give to them in terms of restructuring their platforms to really utilize those tools in a way that's actually effective?
Yeah, that's another $1 million question, I would say. From what I understand, there is no clear-cut answer to that question yet. All different types of research have been able to prove is that there is something wrong with only having liking and sharing. And we conducted another research looking into traditional media, and then we were able to find that that also comes with a trade-off. So looks like at this point, unless there is a new tool, an invention in social media, they come up with something beyond liking and sharing, then it would be the company's choice. If they only want to do social media, then they to some extent have to deal with the slacktivism, even though they can still manage it to some extent by looking at the three phases of a crowdfunding campaign. Or if they want to do the trade-off, okay, for a campaign to take longer, they could use traditional media in conjunction with social media. I would think, this is just me personally thinking, while from what I understand, there is no, like I said, clear-cut answer to that question. Some experiments might be designed to at least do something similar to what Jason was suggesting. If liking and sharing has to be there, and if there's no other tool, at least find people who are better, like shares, or people who are more prominent sharers, if that's even a word, sharer. Okay, and that way, maybe to some extent, it could alleviate the issues that currently the companies are facing using social media for crowdfunding campaigns.
Thank you very much, Aidin, for the interesting topic and the social media. First of all, I was surprised by the result that you're presenting, and I'm telling you why. Because as the computer scientists, we study, for example, the data mining, and that one of the reasons the big search engine make money, like Google, that's the pay per impression, the model that they have. That means that based on the number of the click that people they do, and the result in the search engine, they can make money. So basically they charge the company based on the clicking of the people. So I was saying, I was thinking that the link, when you do the like, share, or share with your thoughts, that's improved dramatically for the visibility of the campaign. But you said, that could damage the campaign. So can you clarify maybe a little bit of the relationship between this click per impression and what you're finding?
Yeah. Thanks for the great question, Anna. So I think a few things to keep in mind here. We are focused on donation-based campaigns, and that's something that differentiates from the money that's being collected for charity versus money that's being collected for business, for-profit activities, okay? What is happening through these websites is that they usually get a small percentage or share of the value of each campaign, or sometimes they have a fixed amount that you pay to publicize the campaign. They have different strategies. So the way that they make, for instance, you could, for certain one of them is the fixed amount. Either, regardless of whether you post a campaign that's the goal is $500 or $1 million, they might charge you just a flat fee of $100 just to use their website. Okay, so that is how the revenue generation for the website is happening as a for-profit entity, versus the campaign managers are operating as a non-profit entity, campaign managers. All right, and we are assuming, I think Grace made a very good point, we are assuming that all these campaigns are real and with good intentions, means there's no scam involved. If you collect money for children in need of school supplies, the money is actually going to be used for that purpose. Also, the campaign managers themselves are not making money off of this. They're just doing this for doing something good. All right? Therefore, the number of likes, shares, or clicks, impressions like that, those things would not impact the campaign manager because it's charity-based. Versus when you think of it, finding something on Google and then clicking on it, which is click per impression, then you might be directed to GoFundMe website. And that's something that I briefly mentioned in terms of one of the limitations of this research. We do not know how people were directed to this website, okay? Did you go on the website simply because you heard there is a campaign, collecting money for victims of the wildfire? Or you Googled GoFundMe.com, you clicked on the link, and then you went to their website. That information for Scrape Data is not available to us. So that might be something that maybe the results sounded a little bit counterintuitive from your perspective. But I just want to emphasize that the website is a for-profit entity. Each campaign is a non-profit entity, meaning the campaign managers themselves are not doing this to gain money. So whatever they collect goes to that cost under ideal conditions. Thank you.
Hello, I thought your research was really interesting. I had a question what's it called? So in line with the new administration, there's content moderation policies shifting towards, for example, inhibiting content relating to political contention topics like, for example, the Israeli-Palestine war. And I've noticed this since at least the past year, there's been several GoFundMes about the Gaza, what's happening there, and GoFundMe victims, or the seeking funds. So I was wondering, how do you think that potential shifting policy and moderation on social media can potentially, do you think it could inhibit how people view these GoFundMe links or those sharing this awareness and sort of, what's it called, going to these sites and donating potential?
So I think, as someone who does data analytics, as I said, I would be hesitant to make any statement before looking at what the data is telling us, right? So I would think, if the data for any campaign in the realm of what you described is collected, and then the campaign is analyzed, similar analysis could be done, and then once that's done, then we could see whether social media liking and sharing and if/how might impact the process. This particular website has removed the like button, so that's not something that can be studied anymore, but sharing is still available there and can be studied. So I would say just having a quick answer, I would defer that to the result of data analysis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, if we don't have any more questions, can you please help me thank Dr. Namin for tonight's presentation?
Thank you. Thank you.